My name is Naomi Elise Calder, 32 years old. The night of our engagement party felt wrong before anyone said a word. There was something in the air, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting to see if we'd choose spectacle over love. Ethan's parents had opened their big suburban home to both families, catering trays lining the kitchen island, relatives parked on the sectional that had seen more football than honest conversation. I wore my mother's sapphire studs. I hadn't taken them out since the accident. 1 year, and the studs felt like the only part of her that still warmed to my skin. Ethan squeezed my hand as people filtered in. "You okay?" he murmured. "I'm fine," I said, because that was the version of me this room asked for. Fine, polite, grateful. His mother swept by with a flourish of perfume, and his father tapped a glass with a butter knife, the universal summoning of attention. The chatter dimmed. The phones rose. "Welcome, welcome," his father boomed. "We're so happy to celebrate our son Ethan and his future wife, Naomi." A smattering of applause. His mother, brittle smile in place, added, "We thought we'd keep it light tonight. Some fun family stories. You know us." I didn't know them, not the way they wanted to be known. I knew the other version, the tearful calls to my mom when the contractor demanded payment they couldn't make. The night my mother sat at their table with a pen, co-signing a renovation loan they wanted to be proud of without the weight of her name on the paperwork. My mother had said, "Family is who you choose to help," and she chose them. Naomi's late mother, his father said, tilting his head like he was cradling something fragile and finding it inconvenient. She was involved. A ripple of caution skated across the room. He grinned. "Always offering help no one asked for, right?" His wife laughed, eyes sliding toward me to check if I would let the knife land. Ethan gave a small, embarrassed chuckle, and the sound hooked into me like a fishing barb. I felt my neck heat. In that living room, with the catered meatballs and the framed family photos, they were building a version of my mother that could be laughed at safely because she wasn't there to answer. "Let's hope we can keep future in-laws from overstepping," his father quipped, and a few uncertain laughs sputtered. Ethan's mother added, "Overbearing motherly affection. Bless her heart." The phrase I have always hated. Bless her heart. The polite way to salt a wound. I stared at Ethan. He didn't look away. He didn't look sorry. Memories flickered like bad projections. My mother at their dining table with a spreadsheet open, showing Ethan's parents how to structure payments. My mother dropping off groceries when his father lost his job. No questions, no receipt. My mother babysitting his younger siblings so they could have a date night they claimed they needed to reconnect. She was generous, not meddling. But generosity is easy to resent when it makes a record you'd rather forget. I told myself they were clueless, not cruel. I told myself they didn't hear themselves. Then Ethan's mother leaned into the mic, unnecessary in a living room, and exactly right for a performance. "I'm just saying," she said, sing-song and dagger clean. "Some people don't know when to stop. Meddling." She smiled, and this time I saw it. Satisfaction. There was a cousin standing by the mantel. Ava, I think, who stage whispered to another relative, "Mia would die laughing." I didn't know the name at first. Then it clicked. Mia, Ethan's ex-girlfriend, the one his mother still invited to brunch even after we got engaged, the one who sat beside his mother at church like she'd been assigned the seat by God. Mia didn't come tonight, but her ghost was draped across the sofa. Ethan's father wrapped up with a smirk. "We might have done things differently if dear mother was still around," he said. And something in me broke so cleanly I didn't hear it until the room went quiet. They handed me the microphone because that was the order of things. Host speaks, fiancé speaks, we smile, we cut cake. I held the mic like a match. "Thank you," I said, smiling the smile you practice when you need it, to look gentle while your bones go hard. I'm sure we all enjoyed those remarks about my late mother. She would have loved hearing how you see her now that she can't defend herself. The room inhaled. Ethan's mother's smile thinned. His father rolled his shoulders, like a man turning to face a wave he thought he could wade through. Ethan's hand twitched toward my sleeve. I took a single step away. "Since we're telling stories," I continued, "let's recall a few true ones. Like the time my mother co-signed the loan for this house when the bank didn't trust you. Or when she paid for the landscaping you promised to pay back and never did. Or when she babysat your kids for hours so you two could have date nights because your marriage needed attention. Funny how none of that made it into your light-hearted speech. Ethan's face drained to a color I'd only seen in emergency rooms. Naomi, he whispered. What are you doing? Answering, I said. I scanned the room. On my side, confusion and anger. On theirs, restless embarrassment, the kind that wants to pinch the truth until it bruises and calls it etiquette. A few people avoided my eyes like my grief might be contagious. You called my mother meddling, I said, each word smooth with care. She guarded your dignity even while she patched your holes. She didn't ask for repayment. She asked for respect, and you made a joke of her when she couldn't hear you. His father barked a laugh. Too loud, too late. You're humiliating us in front of everyone. You did that yourselves, I said softly. Ethan reached for the mic. I pivoted away without touching him. This party, I continued, was supposed to be the moment we announced our wedding date, the joining of families. So let's make an announcement. I looked at Ethan, really looked at him, the man who told me he loved my courage because it made him feel safe, the man whose laughter at his parents' jokes sat in my stomach like lead. And I made my decision because sometimes love is a door and sometimes it's a wall you finally stop pretending you can walk through. I'm calling off this wedding, I said, clear as glass. Effective immediately. The room detonated. A shriek from Ethan's mother, curses from his father, a chorus of gasps that sounded like a flock flushing from a tree all at once. My father sighed, quiet, solid, exhaled like they'd been holding their breath since the first joke landed. Someone near the back whispered, "Good girl," like I was saving myself from a fire. Ethan grabbed my arm. You can't do this here. You did this here, I said, pulling free. You made my mother a punchline on a night she should have been a blessing. His mother's voice sliced the air. She's being dramatic because she lost her mother. I turned, and the part of me that has learned to speak without shaking did the speaking. Don't talk to me about sensitivity, I said. Talk to me about the year you lost your job and my mother paid your car note so you wouldn't lose it. Talk to me about the groceries she left on your porch when you pretended pride was a meal. Silence, not the delicate kind, the kind that crushes. A few of Ethan's relatives looked at his parents like they were seeing them in daylight for the first time. Others fidgeted, angry at me for refusing to keep the secret that allowed them to keep the peace. Somewhere behind me, a teenager dropped a fork and jumped at the sound. I set the microphone down on the coffee table. I thought about the sapphire studs in my ears and how my mother would have laughed at how I'd kept them on like armor. I thought about a girl named Mia who learned to sit beside Ethan's mother and smirk when a dead woman was called meddling. Ethan whispered, "Please, let's talk privately." You made it public, I said. His father stepped toward me, rage warm and sloppy. You ungrateful. My father, who had been quiet so long, I worried the room would forget him, stepped forward and placed himself between us, the way a man steps between a storm and a window. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Enough, he said. I picked up my coat. People called my name and my mother's in the same breath, as if the syllables could pull me back. They couldn't. I walked past the buffet, past the family portraits, past the front door that opened toward air I could breathe. In the driveway, my phone began to buzz. Apologies from some, accusations from others. Ethan's name stacked in notifications like a dare. I didn't answer. The sky had that specific bruised color it gets right before night gives up pretending it isn't morning in another part of the world. I slid into my father's car. He didn't say, "I'm proud of you." He didn't need to. He put the car in gear and we left. Behind us, the house glowed like a stage where the show had ended and the actors didn't know it yet. What I felt wasn't triumph. It was relief that tasted like grief, the kind that burns on the way down and then sits warm in your chest. By the time we reached my apartment, my phone had become an instrument for other people's fear. Ethan, it was a joke. Dad went too far. Please. Ethan's mother. You humiliated us. You owe us an apology. Ethan's father. We will sue you for slander, a relative I barely knew. You don't throw away a wedding over a small joke. A small joke is a knife you call decorative after it lands. I powered the phone off. In the mirror, the studs flashed like a heartbeat. My mother always said, "Family is who you choose to help." Tonight, I finally understood the cost of choosing wrong. By morning, the world had organized itself into two camps. People who thought I'd save my life, and people who thought I'd ruin theirs. The messages came in waves. Apologies from distant cousins who'd watched their own parents weaponize generosity. Accusations from Ethan's side. You made a scene. You embarrassed us. You should have talked to the adults privately. Ethan's mother wrote a paragraph that started with, "Out of respect for your grief," and ended with, "You owe us an apology." The way some people use the word respect as if it's a leash. Ethan's name pulsed at the top of the screen, calling like a fire alarm that insists it's music. I let it ring. Then I answered. "It got out of hand," he said without hello. "You know my dad?" "Yes," I said. "I know him." "I didn't plan that," he rushed on. He thought it would be light. You know how he is." "I know how you are," I said. "You laughed." He exhaled, for 2 seconds because I panicked. Another inhale, a different tone. "Can we talk? Just you and me, privately." "You made it public," I said, feeling the echo of last night. "We'll keep it consistent." He bristled. "So you want to punish me?" "I want to name what happened," I said. "You mocked a dead woman who fed your family and held your receipts. You turned her into a caricature and called it a speech." Naomi, I didn't mean." "You didn't stop it," I said. "You didn't stop them." Silence. Then the soft voice people use when they think gentleness can erase history. "You're sensitive right now." "I'm precise," I said, "and I want the ring back." He went quiet as a closed door. "You're serious." "As serious as a co-signed loan and a babysitting ledger," I said. "I'll text you a time." I hung up. 10 seconds later, a new message landed like a dare from a number labeled Mia, the ex-girlfriend Ethan's mother still posted about on Mother's Day. "I heard last night was eventful. If you need help smoothing things with his mom, I'm around." I stared at it for a moment too long. Then I typed, "We're not smoothing anything." She replied with a single heart, the kind people send when they don't like you, but adore the game. My father stopped by with bagels and silence, the kind that lets fury evaporate without telling it to. He sat at my kitchen table and fixed the wobbly chair leg he'd been muttering about for months. "Offer still stands," he said finally. "I can talk to them." "I won't put you in a room with people who laughed at Mom," I said. He nodded. "Then I'll stand in the doorway if they come to you." I texted Ethan a time and a place. The bench by the duck pond, noon. Neutral ground, visible, no chance for doors to close and stories to be rewritten while the air listened. He arrived late, as if tardiness were a power he could still wield. He held the ring box like contraband. He looked around once, then sat. "Naomi," he started, and his voice cracked around my name. I didn't want it to go like that. "I believe you," I said. "I also believe what I watched." He opened the box, the diamond bright in winter sun that made everything honest. "I should keep it until we talk," he tried. "No," I said, palm open. "You don't get to hold the premise while we debate the conclusion." He flinched and set the box in my hand. "I'm sorry," he said. "I really am. Dad was awful." "And you?" I asked. He swallowed. "I shouldn't have laughed." "I needed you to say stop," I said. "I needed you to put your body between their mouths and my mother's memory. You didn't." He stared at the pond like it had notes for him. I freeze when he gets like that. "Then you shouldn't have asked me to stand next to you in front of a priest," I said. He blinked. "That's harsh." "It's accurate," I said, and slipped the box into my bag. "I've canceled the venue. I'll eat the deposit." His jaw tightened. "We could have handled that together." "We handle nothing together," I said. "That's the point." He rubbed his face, then tried another angle. "My mom, she's already telling people you overreacted. It would help if you clarified." "I did," I said. "I clarified last night, loudly." He sighed, defeated, sliding into defensive. "You ruined my family's reputation." "They did that themselves when they turned charity into a punchline," I said, rising. "Don't text me unless it's logistics." He watched me go, like a man realizing the fire he set doesn't know the difference between his hands and the house. By afternoon, the counter-campaign began. A Facebook post from his mother. "Grief can make people do unkind things. We forgive and move forward." The comments, a Greek chorus of pity and bad theology. I didn't respond. Public performance can't survive without a partner. Then a message from Ethan's father, a paragraph of threats dressed as law. Defamation, emotional distress, will sue. I forwarded it to a friend who works at a firm. She wrote back, "Empty. Document everything." I printed the threats like postcards from a place I never planned to visit. Voicemails piled up. His aunt. "Family's tease, you took it too seriously." His cousin Ava. "They were wrong, but you didn't have to blow it up." A neighbor who'd once asked my mother for a ride to the doctor. Sometimes you forgive for the greater good. The way greater good always seems to require the same woman's silence. That night, someone buzzed my apartment. I checked the camera. Ethan's mother stood in the hallway with a casserole like a prop and a mouth like a blade. I didn't open the door. She left the dish and a note tucked under the foil. Let's be civil. We can't take back what's said in anger. I slid the dish into the trash, note and all. Civility asks for tone when it can't defend content. The next morning, I met with the venue to cancel. The manager offered sympathy and a partial credit. We've seen worse, she said kindly, which was a sentence with 1,000 stories inside. I walked out holding a check smaller than my pride and felt lighter anyway. Ethan texted again. Mia says she can help mediate with my mom. She gets her. I stared at the words until they went flat. Then, your mother already had a mediator, my mother. She chose your family and carried your debt and never asked for credit. You laughed when they repaid her in jokes. I don't need Mia. I need distance. He didn't respond. Sometimes silence is mercy's twin. By Friday, my father sent a single message. You're not alone. Dinner at 7? I went. We ate in the booth we used to sit in after Little League games. It felt like a place where the rules were still legible. He asked nothing I couldn't answer with a nod. He told a story about my mother trying to fix our leaky sink with a YouTube video and a rubber band. We laughed until we cried. The kind of laugh that returns oxygen to rooms that forgot how to breathe. Saturday morning, a knock. I opened the door to Ethan, eyes red, holding a box. I found these, he said, setting it down. Your mom's photos. I took them after the accident to scan them. I was going to make you a book. I never finished. Ice slid under my skin. You took them without asking. You thought you were entitled to the story of a woman you laughed at, I said. Leave them and go. Naomi, he whispered, leaning against the doorframe like it owed him support. I love you. You love the version of me who makes your mother comfortable, I said. I'm not marrying your comfort. He winced. A neighbor walked past and slowed, the human reflex to proximity and drama. Ethan straightened. You can't throw us away over a small joke, he tried, reaching for the script the chorus had been feeding him. Call it small if it helps you sleep, I said. My mother isn't a punchline. He stared at me a long time, then down at the box. Keep the casserole dish, he muttered, attempt at humor brittle as spun sugar. It's already in the trash, I said. His mouth opened, closed. He left without the lift of a goodbye. I carried the box inside like something living. On the top, a photo from a summer when everything was still possible. My mother on a blanket, a popsicle stain on her wrist, looking at me like I was a future she could trust. The back read in her handwriting. My girl, my brave one. It tilted the room. On Sunday, I drove to the cemetery and sat on the grass because it felt wrong to stand over her like an authority. I told her everything. The studs in my ears glinted and I touched them, the way you touch a relic and call it prayer. A breeze moved through the trees like approval. My phone buzzed once, Ethan again, and I turned it off before the screen could tell me a story it preferred to the truth. I stayed until the shadows stretched long and honest. On the way home, I passed Ethan's parents' street by accident and saw Mia on the porch, handing a pie to his mother. They laughed, the conspiratorial kind people use when they're bonding over the exile of someone who refused to play. For a second, the old ache rose. What if I'd kept the peace and kept the party? Then I remembered what it cost. That night, I typed a short email to the last vendor. Cancel. No reschedule. Thank you for your understanding. I closed my laptop and stood in the quiet of an apartment that didn't ask me to apologize for love. I thought about my mother's line, family is who you choose to help, and realized there's a second half she never said out loud because she didn't want to make me cynical. And sometimes family is who chooses to help themselves to your dignity and asks you to bless the theft. I chose her. I chose me. I chose the kind of future where jokes don't bleed. The following week, the noise began to fade, but not completely. Noise never really dies. It just learns to whisper where it once screamed. There were still texts from strangers who'd heard a version of the story. There were still relatives forwarding screenshots from Ethan's mother's Facebook posts about healing and forgiveness. And there were still long, angry paragraphs from Ethan himself, paragraphs that read like apologies, trapped inside arguments. I didn't reply to any of them. I went back to work, to the unglamorous calm of routine. Data sheets, emails, microwaved lunches, But even there, people looked at me differently. The brave one, the girl who called off a wedding mid-party. Some admired me, some pitied me. Most didn't know what to say. But I did. I said it in my head every time I opened my laptop or passed a framed photo of my mother on my desk. I did the right thing. Still, there were nights when the silence pressed too close, when the apartment's hum felt like judgment, and the blue glow of my phone tempted me to scroll just once more. Sometimes I'd see Mia tagged in a picture with Ethan's family, her arm around his mother, the caption reading, "Grateful for real bonds that last." The pettiness of it almost made me laugh. Almost. One Thursday night, I heard a soft knock on my door. I didn't check the camera this time. Something in me already knew who it was. Ethan stood there, unshaven, holding the same box of photos. His eyes were bloodshot. "Can I come in?" he asked. I crossed my arms. "You already have. Every time you text, every time you post, every time your mother turns my mother's death into a PR campaign." He blinked, caught between guilt and the reflex to defend himself. "That's not fair." "No," I said, "it's accurate." He looked down at the box in his hands, the same one I'd told him to leave behind. "I made the photo book. I finished it. You should have it." I hesitated, then opened the door, just wide enough for him to set it on the counter. The book's cover was soft linen, something thoughtful, something too late. He lingered in the doorway. "Naomi," he said softly, "I know I can't fix this, but please believe me. I loved your mom too." I met his eyes. "Then you should have stood up for her." His throat worked, but no sound came. "She would have wanted you to forgive me." "She would have wanted you to respect her," I said. "And since you didn't, I'm doing it for both of us." For a moment, he looked like he might cry. Instead, he nodded, small, hollow, and walked away. I didn't watch him go this time. I just closed the door, turned the lock, and exhaled a year's worth of what-ifs. 2 weeks later, I stood at my mother's grave again. This time, I brought flowers from her garden. Or what was left of it, the lavender she'd planted before the accident. I pressed the stems into the soil, the scent curling up like memory. "I did it, Mom," I whispered. "I defended you." Wind rustled through the trees, soft as approval. I stayed there until the sun dipped low enough to paint the headstones gold. When I left, I didn't cry. I smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't perform. It just lives. Months passed. I moved apartments, donated the wedding decorations I'd never used, and started learning the art of weekends again. One Saturday, my father convinced me to join a local volunteering event at the community garden. That's where I met Caleb. 35, quiet humor, hands that looked like they'd actually worked the soil. He didn't know anything about my past. He just asked if I preferred tea or coffee and if I knew how to keep succulents alive. We talked while planting basil. I laughed more in that one afternoon than I had in months. When he offered to walk me home, I almost said no. Old reflex. But something about the steadiness in his voice made yes feel safe again. At my building, he stopped at the gate. "You seem like someone who's carried heavy things," he said. "I have," I said, "but I finally learned what to set down." He smiled. "Then maybe I'll just walk beside you. No carrying, no fixing." It was simple. It was enough. That night, I opened the photo book Ethan had left. The first few pages were exactly what I expected. Childhood pictures, old birthdays, my mother's handwriting scrawled in margins. But halfway through, something stopped me. A photo I'd never seen before. My mother and me, side by side at her kitchen table, laughter mid-breath, sunlight cutting through the blinds just right. On the back, written in my mother's familiar cursive, "For my brave girl, don't let anyone rewrite who we are." Tears came, quiet and grateful. I closed the book and placed it on the shelf, not as a wound, but as a monument. Life didn't explode after that. It just softened. The mornings felt lighter. My apartment stayed quiet but not lonely. I learned to cook her favorite soup without needing the recipe. Sometimes I still hear Ethan's father's laugh in my dreams. That sneer, that arrogance. But now, it doesn't shake me. It just reminds me of the night I found my voice and chose not to spend the rest of my life apologizing for it. When people ask about the canceled wedding, I just say, it wasn't a loss, it was a lesson. And when they ask what kind of lesson, I tell them this: that love without respect isn't love. That silence in the face of cruelty is consent, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do for the people you've lost is to stand up for them, even when they're no longer here to see it. I visit my mother every spring. I bring lavender. I bring stories. I bring peace. This year, I brought Caleb. He stood a few steps behind me, quiet, reverent. Afterward, he asked what she was like. I smiled, the kind of woman who believed in helping everyone, even the ones who didn't deserve it. He nodded. Sounds like she passed that down. Maybe, or maybe I just finally understood what she meant all along. Family is who you choose to help, and love, real love, is who stays to help you heal.